After JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fans waited patiently for 2 months, Araki delivered with yet another chapter of the ongoing Endless Calamity arc a few days ago. Before we get into the video, I just wanted to say very quickly, this is my first video that I've released in a few weeks, and I apologise for that. I've recently returned to my real life job, so time is a lot more limited for me lately. I have got a new stand analysis video ready and waiting to release, and I also mentioned this on that video as well. But since this video is coming out first, I thought I'd give you all a heads up here as well. If you're new to the channel, whether you found me by searching for Jojolion videos, or even if I just came up in your recommended, if you enjoy the content I create, please make sure to subscribe to help support the channel and to also keep up to date with my future uploads. And of course, if you haven't read the chapter yet, I'd recommend doing so before watching the video, as I'm not going to talk about every aspect of the chapter, as it's much better to read it yourself. Thank you so much for clicking this video, but without further ado, let's begin with the review for chapter 101. First off, we have the cover page with this really awesome shot of Yasuho staring off into the distance, with the lack of a right arm which she lost in part 11 of the Wonder of You, Your Miraculous Love arc. Since it's been quite some time since we saw her lose her arm, it had actually slipped my mind, so seeing this cover page was a little startling at first. Something else to note in this chapter before we get started is that we learn yet a little bit more about how Wonder of You works as a stand. Not a whole lot of information, but it could help piece together some previous scenes to determine its power a little more accurately. I mention that here because the text on this cover page is actually related to this realization. As you see here, the text reads, "Within the maelstrom of calamity, pull in hope." Strangely enough, in terms of learning Wonder of You's abilities, the most important word in this text right here is the word within. I'll go into a bit more detail later on. Page 1 of the chapter shows the Higashikata estate from the perspective of Tooru, who is apparently still hiding within the thicket, watching Yasuho and Joshu. This page also reminds us about Yasuho's lost arm, and that the Higashikata family has basically crumbled, and watching it all is Tooru himself. A few chapter reviews ago, I stated that I honestly thought Tooru had left the area to go to the TG University Hospital to attack Josuke and Rai and defend his stand. But no, it appears he kept hiding, watching and waiting, keeping utmost faith in his stand's abilities. If you remember from a few chapters ago, we learned that rock humans are born as minute life forms that are left in the woods to then be carried off to a wasp's nest. The baby rock humans then crawl inside the queen and leech off various generations of queens until they hit a certain age. They then instantaneously grow and explode the nest, and then go off on their own. This second page of the chapter shows that rock humans, even in their adulthood, still continue to feed off wasps, as Tooru baits 2 wasps into attacking him. He then turns a part of his hand into rock to defend himself against the stingers, and then by the next minute, he's munching on them. Jojolion just continues to get more and more weird. Also, this final panel on page 2 stood out to me for a certain reason. It shows Tooru and the Wonder of You, except the stand is more bold and visible, whereas Tooru himself has begun fading? I don't know if that's the right word, but the way Araki has drawn this makes me wonder. I've seen a few theories that Tooru and the Wonder of You are 2 separate bodies with 1 singular consciousness. This idea would be similar to Diavolo and Doppio, where 2 souls inhabited 1 body, except in Toru's case, this would be the opposite, where 1 soul can inhabit 2 bodies and swap between the 2 at will. This is a theory that I like the concept of, and these sorts of panels have been displayed in previous chapters, though this may just be an artistic style of Araki's to show that the scene is flipping back over to the fight in the hospital. On the 3rd page, we go back to the moment where Rai got pierced by multiple soap bubbles. We see the spinning soap bubble covered in blood, and the text says it passed through his suit. Both Wonder of You and Josuke himself are confused by this, as the suit remained completely undamaged, yet the soap bubble created a massive hole in his chest. We then see that yes, indeed, Rai has passed away from his injuries. Yet, similar to how Gyro explained to Johnny how to achieve the infinite rotation before he died, Rai has alluded to Josuke that he uses the spin unconsciously with his bubbles, though I do wonder if Rai managed to explain it in enough detail to Josuke before dying. We see Tooru in the corner of the page trying to comprehend what Rai had just said, which also shows that Tooru can see and hear everything that is going on in that room through his stand, which we sort of knew anyway. Tooru recounts what Rai just said about Josuke being able to create soap bubbles that cannot be seen, but he realizes that this is an ability that not even Josuke himself is aware of. This is where things get interesting. Remember at the start of the review when I pointed out the word within on the cover page, where it stated within the maelstrom of calamity? This page is where we get a bit more info regarding Wonder of View's ability. Tooru states that Josuke is still inside the Calamity. This could mean a lot of things. A few quick theories I thought up are that the Wonder of View has an insanely huge range which spans from the Higashikata House all the way to the TG University Hospital. However, this one seems unlikely. Another theory that I thought up which is more likely is that an effect is attached to specific people manually by Tooru. This effect stays attached to the target until Tooru stops it, or the person dies. When within this effect, Tooru can manipulate what happens at will. This might mean that the ability might not just be limited to pursuit of the head doctor, but because Tooru knows that they needed to approach the head doctor, that is the effect that Tooru put in place. In other words, if Josuke decided to chase a cat down the street and Tooru had the Calamity effect attached to Josuke, he could make calamities befall Josuke just for chasing the cat. Same with if Josuke wanted to get a carton of milk from the fridge. If the effect befell him and Tooru willed it, Josuke might get attacked whenever he tried to get milk from the fridge. This is just a quick theory I thought up about the ability. The same might be said for seeing the back of the head doctor. Tooru could perhaps manipulate the minds of his targets if they are affected by the Calamity ability. This would explain why Mitsuba cut her fingers off with a knife she was holding, as Toru's will could have manipulated her mind into doing that due to her being caught within his Calamity ability. This could also explain how various characters could see the head doctor in different areas. I don't know if any of that actually made any sense, but let me know in the comments below what you think of this theory and whether you have any ideas that could expand on it. The focus shifts back over to Joshu and Yasuho, who we haven't seen for 3 chapters, which in Jojolion terms is quite a long time, especially since we had a 2-month break recently. This means we haven't seen these two for around 4 months now. Joshu goes into detail about Jobin being dead behind the garage door, and explains how the Higashikata family is all but ruined. Joshu starts beating himself up due to the guilt of just standing there, allowing Jobin to almost fatally wound their father Norisuke in a previous chapter. Yasuho explains to Joshu that an enemy is coming to take the fruit, and then asks him to find Josuke. Here we see Tooru overhearing the entire conversation about Josuke. Until now, he had mainly been hiding behind trees, but for this conversation, he seemed particularly interested. Joshu states that they don't need Josuke, and that he himself can protect Yasuho. It's at this point I started to gain a bit more respect for Joshu, as it seems like he really does want to protect Yasuho. Heck, at this point I was holding out hope that he would sacrifice himself for Yasuho by using the new Rokakaka. It's at this point he notices her lost arm, and also suddenly gives her the nickname My Little Strawberry, which, given the situation, seems incredibly weird and says to me that Joshu isn't reading the situation very well. He points out to Yasuho that the new Rokakaka has 2 fruit ready to go, and that he's prepared to make up for his prior weaknesses in letting his family crumble around him by sacrificing himself for Yasuho. He offers Yasuho to eat the fruit to help fix her arm, and this is where Tooru seems a little at shock at what is going on. Yasuho seems reluctant, expressing that neither of them know exactly what will happen if she eats this new variant of the Rokakaka, yet Joshu seems to understand exactly what will happen due to the fusion of Kira and Josefumi previously. Joshu seems convicted in saving Yasuho with the fruit, and then proceeding to heal his father, and saving the entire family. This is the sort of moment that Joshu needed to actually be deemed a decent character, in my opinion anyway. In nearly all of Jojolion, Joshu has come across as a scummy, creepy, selfish douchebag, and honestly I've been waiting for a moment like this where he redeems himself, and actually contributes to saving the family and stopping the villain. Yasuho notices a noise in the thicket where Tooru is stood, but Joshu insists it's just the wind, as he's been hearing the noise for a while now. Yasuho is convinced there is someone there, watching them. It's possible Joshu knew this was the stand user, and is trying to bait him out by talking ill of Josuke, threatening to use up both the Rokakaka fruits and also doing something else that is yet to come. Just wait and see, we're nearly there. Tooru deems this a good opportunity to learn what the new Rokakaka might actually do, as he's not yet witnessed it being used. He decides to use them as test subjects and to allow them to eat one of the fruits. The branch will grow more fruit over time after all, so it's not a huge loss, as long as he gets the potted branch back at some point. Tooru also mentions yet again about someone being inside the Wonder of View, meaning Yasuho herself. Yet he only states that she is under the effect, not Joshu. Tooru has only just witnessed Joshu for the first time, if I remember correctly anyway. and since his stand is currently at the TG University Hospital, it's possible that he cannot attach the effect of his Wonder Review onto Joshu unless he retracts his stand back to the Higashikata estate. This means Joshu is, for now anyway, able to pursue Tooru if given the chance, if this theory is correct. This is probably why Tooru continues to hide, as he cannot use his stand ability right now. He's probably hoping the Wonder Review will take care of Josuke quickly, so then he can bring it back to the estate and then use it on the surviving Higashikata members. Yasuho tries to explain to Joshu that eating the new Rokakaka will perform an equivalent exchange with another person, but it seems Joshu is fully aware that the other person pertains to him. It's at this point he seems to actually stand tall, looking like he will finally become a true Jobro, sacrificing himself for Yasuho. Oh no, wait, never mind. Of course, Joshu is still his thirsty, horny self, going into gross detail about how becoming one with Yasuho will be sweet-smelling, gooey, and slippery. Yeah, Joshu probably just shifted even further down in my estimations, if that was even possible. The chapter continues to get even more uncomfortable as Joshu asks Yasuho what position she would like him to be in when they fuse. However, this is the other thing I was talking about when I said he might be trying to bait Tooru. Remember, Tooru dated Yasuho in high school, and it seemed like he wanted to rekindle the love with her. Joshu may or may not know about this, but if he does, then this might be an attempt to antagonize Tooru into showing himself. If that is the case, Joshu still might have a chance to redeem himself. This next page shows Tooru inching a little closer, potentially getting a little bit worked up by the intimate positions he sees Yasuho and Joshu getting into. This results in a twig snapping, revealing to Yasuho that the stand user is indeed in the immediate vicinity. In a previous chapter, she had phoned Tooru to help and told him exactly where she is. With this information, she has managed to determine that the enemy stand user is indeed Tooru, her ex-boyfriend from high school. Presumably in anger and shock, she quickly grabs the fruit and begins chomping on it aggressively. Joshu questions what she just did, seeming very shocked at the action of Yasuho. Now, if Joshu was trying to antagonize Tooru this whole time, then her spontaneously biting into the fruit probably wasn't actually a part of his plan. Tooru watches with intrigue as Joshu and Yasuho's bodies meld together as the equivalent exchange begins to affect them. We get a somewhat gross and trippy page of their bodies seemingly fusing by the legs as Yasuho's arm begins to regrow and Joshu's arm begins to disappear. Tooru seems impressed with the result of the equivalent exchange, as it seems Yasuho and Joshu's bodies break free again. Yasuho has regained her arm, and Joshu regrets his decision. The text at the end of the chapter reads, Yasuho has got her arm back, and now she faces her former, meaning her former boyfriend Tooru. It was really good to get back to the Higashikata estate area to see what was happening with Yasuho, Joshu, and Tooru. I'm really not convinced that Joshu was actually being sneaky and trying to antagonize Tooru, as we've seen he's not the smartest tool in the shed. This redemption attempt on his part was ruined by his want to get physically close to Yasuho, and he saw it as an opportunity to take advantage of her. I'm glad to say Joshu got what he deserved in this situation, as he has done nothing but act like one of the biggest douchebags in all of JoJo since the first chapter. I was really happy that Yasuho finally got her arm back and seems to be ready to face off against Tooru. However, her stand Paisley Park is more of a stand made for recon and support rather than fighting. So I'm quite excited to see how Araki intends on handling a Yasuho vs Tooru fight. I would assume Joshu would get involved even with one arm, but we'll have to wait and see until hopefully next month, unless the scene flies back to the hospital. We got a little bit more info on Wonder Review with the fact that Tooru claims his victims are inside or within Wonder Review. This might refer to the range of the stand, or it could mean the targets have individual effects sort of grafted onto their spirits. I don't know, but I'm very interested in finding out. Wonder Review has become one of my top 10 stands in Part 8 so far, and I can't wait for all of its mechanisms to be revealed so I can eventually analyze them in more detail. That about does it for Chapter 101 of Jojolion. We have plenty of mysteries still to be revealed in regards to Josuke's spin, Wonder Review's ability, and Tooru's motive, plus who Akefusa Tooru actually is. It feels like Jojolion might be coming to an end within the next year or two, as we're in the midst of the Endless Calamity arc. Although, remember the D4C arc in Steel Ball Run? That went on for a good long time, spanning 15 chapters, as well as having 4 or 5 other arcs in the middle of and after the D4C arc, meaning that once the D4C arc started, Steel Ball Run still spanned for nearly 30 chapters before it ended. Jojolion may end up being rather similar, and there may be a lot more content and story to tell once the Endless Calamity arc is over and done with. We'll have to wait and see till next month to find out more answers to these mysteries, and also if the Endless Calamity arc continues, or if we'll move on to something else. What did you personally think of Chapter 101? Do you think Joshu had a plan all along? Or is he still just a shallow douchebag? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, then it'd be great if you could leave a thumbs up on it down below and maybe even subscribe to keep up with regular uploads and stand analysis videos. Thank you so much for watching, but until next time, Bizarre Star Platinum out.